In this video, I will demonstrate how to convert Power BI data into a mail merge ready Excel document. For the sake of this video and to protect students' identity as much as possible, I have blacked out the names. So in here, as well as in the Excel document, we're going to be using the student's ID numbers instead as the reference. Of course, when you're doing this in person, you can use the student's names, but the principal will still hold. So here we have the data already pulled up and begin using the student's ID number as a reference number. And as we see, for one single student, the data is listed in rows, which makes it tricky for Power BI because then how do you know you're going to the next row versus the other one? So what we're going to try to do here, or use Excel to do rather, is we're going to copy all the data so that each successive course is on the single row. So then when we go to Power BI, it's just reading different columns for a single data entry. Okay? So let's begin. So the data that we're copying is course 1 to the course number, the semester 1 grade quarter, the common assessment grade, and the grades that Graderator produces to calculate the following grades. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this row of labels and drop it here. I'm going to relabel course 1 as course 2. Now for these ones, they're duplicated, but when you do mail merge, it's going to correct it so that it gives it unique identities, so it's still easy to identify. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, create a if statement that's going to have Excel read the data and figure out what it wants to do. So my if statement is going to be if, starting with the second row, if this ID number, oops, sorry, I forgot a parentheses. If parentheses, this ID number is the same as this ID number, then I want this to read the same course code here. If it's not the same, then I want it to leave it blank. So I'm going to put an open quotation mark, close quotation mark, and then enter. So in this case, this is the same student, so it's going to copy the course here. Now we're going to copy this down for a successive one, so I want it to freeze on the row and the column that I'm pulling. So to do that, I'm going to say if $B, so as I copy it across is going to only be reading from that column, is equal to $B2. So now let's see what that does. Same thing here, but now when I click on this tiny box here with this black plus, and I drag it over to get 90, now it's going to say the same thing. So if these two are the same, it's now pulling my semester 1 grade from E3. If these two are the same, it's now pulling my quarter 3 grade. And you can see that all the data from the second row is copied here. Now, I'm going to make my life a little bit easier. We're going to duplicate this again for the next course. So I would say copy next row, course 3. Same thing, I'm going to write equals if, I'm going to start with B2 this time just because I want to. You can get the $ by pressing F4 twice. This freezes the cell permanently. This freezes just the row. What we want is the column. What we want is the B part frozen. So that is equal to this. Then I want this to be copied into that row. Otherwise, again, I want it to be blank. I press equal, so course 3 is biology. Yay, that's cool. And I'm going to drag it all the way over to get the 90. So we can see that this student, to get a 90, needs a 102 based off of here. And if I check from here, that's the same grade I see here. 76 was their common assessment score. Okay, cool, we did that right. Now we're going to need to do this over and over again. Some students have up to 9 courses. So I'm going to copy this, change this to course 4, copy this, change this to course 5. Oops, I didn't copy. And then repeat the process up until we get to course 9. So now that all of that is set up, I'm going to start to seek faster ways to do the same process. So we're going to continue to use the fill feature that is in Excel. So I'm going to use my control left arrow, and I'm going to go back to the first section where we applied this to. So course 2. Now remember we froze column B. If I click and drag this down to, I'm going to go about 8 or 9 rows down because I know I have 8 or 9 courses to fill out, it's going to copy everything over. So notice that AP Spanish moved from the second row to the first row. That's what we did on purpose. Biology is here like we have. English. There's this blank right here because this is saying, is this data from, are these two ID numbers the same? Because they're not, it's giving us the blank row that we wanted to see. So good news, we did this correctly. Now here's where drawing everything down is helpful. We've already done the biology row, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this section here. Just hitting the delete button to clear it. The next course is going to be English 2. Rather than me having to copy or drag that over and redo the same thing, I'm just going to select this section, and then I'm going to click and drag it. Because when you click and drag cells like that, Excel automatically copies the formula into the new place, matching where it is. So now if I hit F2 again to see what we've done, we're saying that for here, if my row B4 is the same as the one before, it's going to copy here. The only thing I want to adjust is I don't want it to correct to this row now. I want it to correct all the way back to the first one. So I'm going to change this B4 to B2. So now it's saying that if my data in this row 5 is the same as my data in row 2, then it's going to copy everything over. So when I hit enter, I'm going to click on here. I'm going to click and drag this all the way over so it copies everything as well. So that means that we're comparing everything in this row to our first row. So I'm going to do that for the remaining rows that we copied over until we finish all the way to course 9. So highlighting it, clicking and dragging until we get into the correct space, and then going into the formula bar and changing that B5 to a B2, and then clicking and dragging over until we selected everything from there, and then double checking to make sure that this is the data that I want. And it is. So again, continue to do that until we finish out to column course 9. Even this row that is blank still has data in it. So when you select this blank row, you're still going to click and drag the same thing over all the way to course 8. The student again has no course 8, so that is why it's blank. And in the same way, the student does not have a course 9. Right now we see data here. When we drag it over to course 9, and when we realign it so that it's comparing to row 2, all of a sudden everything is going to be blank, which is what we expect to see. So now that we have all of this filled in, we're going to use this to fill all the way down. Now, I just tried to do it and it fought me, so I'm going to help you guys. We're going to select all of here, but we see this row that got left over. We need to clear this, because if we do not clear this, then it's not going to let us automatically fill all the way down. So we want to make sure that there's nothing else here, nothing even that I'm missing. So I'm going to select all of this section here and press delete just to make sure it's empty. Then I'm going to press from here, I'm going to press Control, Shift, and the right arrow on my keyboard. Again, Control, Shift, right. And then where I see this square down here, I'm going to hover my mouse over until I get the black square. And I'm going to double click on it. and it's going to automatically fill it all the way to the bottom of our table. So if we zoom out, we can see that for every student, it is now filled in all of these for that same work. Okay. So now we have used Excel to copy all the data into rows. Our last step then is to delete all the duplicates. Because, as we see if we zoom back in, for that same student, I still have 7 rows for them that has the same data over and over again. So my last step is to press Control A to select all of my data. I am going to copy all of my data, Control C. And then I'm going to create a new sheet, and I'm going to paste this as just the values. Okay. So then, to erase our duplicate data, we're going to go to the Data tab. Under where it says Data Tools, there is a blue or white underlooking flag with an X in the corner, and when you hover over it, it says Remove Duplicates. Selecting this, I am going to unselect all of my boxes, and I'm going to delete the duplicate values by student number. So I'm only going to check the student number box. When you have the student names, you can also use student names instead, but either box works. I want whichever is the unique identifier for them. Make sure that the My Data Has Headers box is checked so it does not try to do anything with that. And then when I press OK, now I have 1 row per student. And each of the rows lists all of their courses going all the way out. I save my document, and now it's ready to be converted into a mail merge file. And that is all.